It's Kevin Garnett retirement weekend this weekend in Boston. So let's talk a little KG and Ray Allen and maybe some thawing of those relationships there. That's going to be fun. Plus, Marcus Smart. I'm going to be a little obnoxious about the Marcus Smart flowers in this episode. And hey, let's make fun of the Philadelphia 76ers, and let's do it right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Boston, baby, we do what you can't. Locked on number 18, Tatum and Brown, J-team, step back. We gon' wet that and slay teams. Of course, the Celtics, who else could it be? Screaming like KG with the Larry O.B. Karalis above average, assessing the team status. Best daily pod, no cap, salary matching. Clutch like Bird the DJ, keep John on replay. Prime time, dapping up the truth on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. B.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast. Thank you for making the show part of your daily routine and your first listen every day. This show is free. It is available everywhere. Podcast exists and it is on YouTube. If you've missed the show, you want to scroll back, you can go to lockedonceltics.com and get your episodes there. Again, you can watch the show if you want on YouTube. Please subscribe there. I'm John Karalis. I cover the Celtics for Boston Sports Journal. I've written a book called The Boston Celtics All-Time All-Stars, and I was one of the media voters for the 75th anniversary team. I voted for Kevin Garnett. If you're watching on YouTube, I've got Kevin Garnett's jersey up on the wall behind me because that number is going up into the rafters on Sunday. That is going to be a fun weekend. There's a whole weekend here. The 2008 team, I think it's going to be a reunion that we'll talk about in the third segment. In the second segment, we'll go back to the last game and get into the win over Charlotte, and I got to talk more Marcus Smart because I don't think I've talked enough Marcus Smart here on the podcast. But first, let me bring in Tom Westerholm because Tom and I watched the Sixers game, in quotes, the NBA contest, which was no contest between them and the Brooklyn Nets. First, Tom, let me just say, you're looking good, man. How you doing? How you feeling?
I'm looking way better than I'm feeling. Obviously, I'm always looking good. I'm feeling like crap. I have a non-COVID illness, and let me just say that you have your cool little intro. Like I wrote this book. I was part of the 75, the 75 voters. My name's Tom Westerholm. I wrote the story on Romeo Langford not having his driver's license. I wrote the story on Robert Williams not having his wallet. I wrote the story on Rob Williams getting the Time Lord nickname. So I know a thing or two about the Boston Celtics. What's going on, everybody?
Tom Westerholm is very well versed in all things Celtics. And I say what I say to make it sound cool. It's not as cool as it sounds, but it gives me the credentials for people to be like, oh, wow, I should listen to this guy. Maybe I want to listen to this guy.
Yeah, absolutely. I had to up myself a little bit here,
Absolutely. But Tom over here, where am I pointing? There we go. Tom over here is my former coworker at Mass Live. Tom and I have spent many nights on the road covering the Celtics together for Mass Live before we moved on to our current jobs. Tom's over at Boston.com. Still writing about the Celtics, but also other things now. But we had some fun. There's no doubt about it. We had some fun on the road, and I will tell everybody, man, and I'll share everybody a private text that I sent Tom. I forget what game it was. It was a home game. I was sitting there watching the game, and I was like, man, I miss having you here at the games, talking through stuff at the games, making our jokes, and like at the end being like, okay, here, what are the stories? What do you want to do? We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And that really helps formulate the questions and everything. So I will say publicly for the record, I miss you like hell on the beat.
Man, I miss you too, man. Those were really good times. It was really, really fun to be doing that stuff.
One of my favorite places to go on the beat is Wells Fargo in Philly, because whatever you want to say about Philly fans, that atmosphere, and I think it's because it is very hate-filled, is a fun road atmosphere. I've said it many, many times in this podcast. When I think about playing, I love angry road atmospheres. I just gravitate towards that. because from the Brooklyn Nets perspective, when Brooklyn walked in there, they walked out with a 129-100 win, and it was probably not even that close in this game. With Ben Simmons on the sideline there, and Philly fans like lining up to boo him. If you're the Brooklyn Nets, watching those Nets fans leave, I mean those Sixers fans leave, and with that game very well in hand, that's just chef's kiss, beautiful. You go from fans booing you to fans booing their own team to fans going, you know what? F it. I'm out of here. That's the exact progression you want as a road team. It's so beautiful.
It really was. And I mean, it's very funny to think about. So I tweeted before the game that so apparently this was the most hotly contested ticket in like Stephanie Reddy on TNT reported that this was the like the Sixers said that this was the hardest ticket to get. Like this Ben Simmons returning, not even to play, just to sit on the bench. Ben Simmons coming back. This was the hottest ticket in Sixers, like in the last decade for the Sixers. The Sixers have played a lot of playoff games in the last decade, and this game was more hotly contested than those games, apparently, which I think is so quintessentially Philly. And it's like it's everything that people love/hate about Philly, right? Yeah. Like they take it a little too far. And I mean, just kind of imagining the person who dropped $5,000-$6,000 to sit in the lower section of that game just to watch Kevin Durant obliterate their favorite team and to watch Ben Simmons just kind of smirk. That's the other kind of funny thing I think about the whole Ben Simmons hate is he's not like the most outgoing guy, right? Like he's not Joel Embiid trolling everyone. He's not rubbing it in people's faces. He's a pretty quiet dude. Like maybe passive aggressive. I don't really know. I haven't been close enough to the situation to know, but he's not, he's not like an in your face type guy. He's just kind of sitting back and smirking while his new teammates run his old team out of the gym, including the guy who was traded in exchange for him. So just an all around, if you're a Nets fan, if you're one of the 14 Nets fans in this country, I mean, this is Christmas for you. Congratulations to all 14 of you.
I like how we're taking shots at both fan bases, just dropping, just carpet bombing the whole.
Yeah, we know our audience.
This is a Celtics podcast, so yeah, let's drop the bombs on both. Seth Curry, 24 points, 4 of 8 from 3, 10 of 14 shooting, and then basically walking through the bench and telling his wife's dad, who's Doc Rivers, basically I'm just here to hurt your feelings, is just the best. Like, what's Thanksgiving gonna be like with these guys? What's the next family reunion gonna be like? I mean, first of all, what's that like for Seth to go home and be like, your dad just traded me? Even though I know Daryl Morey's the guy pulling the strings, but you go home to your wife, the person who you confide in the most, and be like, your dad was just cool with me just being traded, so I guess we're moving to Brooklyn.
Yeah, we're moving to Brooklyn, and the next time I see your dad, I'm just gonna, drop 24 points on him. Yeah, I mean
take no offense, but I'm about to ruin your dad's night.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mean, in sincerity, I think that most of these guys are probably able to separate the professional from the
totally.
Personal, but it's still very funny to think about, especially when you see, because Steph has just enough of the Curry strut, right? Mm-hmm. Steph has the full thing, and he deserves the full thing because he's one of the 10 greatest players of all time. But he's got Seth has just enough of that Steph walk where it's he hits a couple of shots and he's feeling himself, and you're just like, okay, you're related to Steph. I see it.
Absolutely. Now let's get to the real numbers. If you're a Celtics fan, these are the numbers that you want to hear. Combined 8 for 34. Joel Embiid and James Harden. Now, Joel Embiid and I've told you this before privately. I'm not a fan of Joel Embiid. I admit his dominance. I admit that he is a worthy MVP candidate. I am not going to let my distaste for his game color what I think he does on the court. However, 15 of 19 free throws, like 19 free throws. There's a big part of his game that is simply foul hunting. When we talk about like the Celtics matching up with the Sixers, there's two things in this game that I think, like, first of all, James Harden, 3 of 17, 11 points. This is a big game. This is a national TV game. This is a big FU game. Like, this is why I wanted to leave your bum ass team. Let me come into this game in front of my new home crowd and show you why I said this was my first choice. And he comes out and sucks. Absolutely sucks. Big game James is like in full effect. Like, that's one reason why I'm like, I don't worry about James Harden killing the Celtics in the playoffs, because James Harden doesn't kill people in the playoffs. And then Joel Embiid, 19 free throw attempts. Is he going to get 19 free throw attempts in 4 playoff games? No, because refs swallow the whistles. So this game is, to me, to tie it into the Celtics, very indicative of why I think that if the Celtics matched up with the Sixers, yeah, people would favor the Sixers, but I think the Celtics have a real chance at beating this team in a playoff series.
I mean, would people favor the Sixers? Like the Celtics,
I feel like they would.
I know Harden didn't play, but like the Celtics beat them by 50 the last time they played them. Like there's plenty of reasons to believe in the Celtics over the Sixers that even go beyond that stuff. I mean, there's Al Horford, like there's a lot. I mean, there's the fact that Matisse Thybulle is a good defender, but Jayson, they don't have much for Jayson Tatum, and if they have something for Jayson Tatum, they don't have anything for Jaylen Brown. Like I think there's a lot of reasons for the Celtics to feel good. I did think it was very funny. I kind of tweeted this that James Harden in this game, right? He broke Reggie Miller's 3-point record. Like he is now the number 3. It's crazy that this is the case, but he has now hit the 3rd most threes in NBA history behind Steph and Ray Allen. He's going to be second by the time he retires. I don't think he's probably going to catch Steph, but he's going to be second. And the ESPN stats and info tweet that he gets after the game is James Harden is one of 2 players this season to go 0 for 10 from 2-point range. The other one being Russell Westbrook.
That's rough.
Unbelievably rough.
That's rough.
You made NBA history, and this is you don't get the game ball. You just get. You had fans leaving because
right.
You were so
Nothing. Oh, my favorite. Which one was it? Was the StatMuse tweet that I retweeted where they said, let me pull it up real quick. The Sixers starters didn't take a single shot in tonight's 4th quarter, a touching tribute to Ben Simmons in his return to Philly. Wow. Just
StatMuse can be vicious, which is very funny for just a stat site.
Right.
Just, torching people.
They really just came in, and that's as smack you in the face a tweet as you're going to get. That's hilarious. The Schadenfreude is fun, and making fun of the Sixers is always one of the favorite pastimes for Celtics fans. I'm sure every Celtics fan who's listening to this is like, okay, yeah, that's great. What better off day for the Celtics than to celebrate the just absolute soiling themselves that the Sixers put forth there. But there was a game on Wednesday. There's going to be a game on Friday night against the Detroit Pistons.
Well, real quick, before we move on, we should also note for Celtics fans that also means that the Sixers are now 1 game ahead of them in the standings. That drops them. So now there is just 1 game separating the 5th place Celtics and the 3rd place Sixers. All right, continue.
Yes, no, that's actually a fair point. We should kind of do the standings update here, where the Celtics are now right. So it's Milwaukee in 2nd place, 2 games ahead of Boston, Philly 1 game ahead of Boston, and the Bulls a half game ahead of Boston.
Yeah.
So conceivable that by the end of the weekend, the Celtics could be the 3rd seed.
For sure.
Which is wild. Let's pick this up after the break, because that's just absolutely wild to me that the Celtics have turned it around to a point where they will have been exceeding expectations. If they get the 3rd seed by the end of this weekend, Forget what happened in the beginning, the first couple of months. They would have been, in any scenario, exceeding expectations at that point. That's just, whew. First, let me tell you about BetOnline. BetOnline is the place to go for all your sports wagering needs. College basketball tourney time. We're in conference tournaments right now, and moving into the NCAA tournament. Obviously, the NBA is winding down into the regular season and the playoffs. So go to betonline.net, your number one source for all your sports betting needs and information. Latest odds, contests, player props, scores, podcast news. All of it is on betonline.net, and it's not just basketball. Live betting, your favorite casino games, whatever other sports you want to bet on. So head on over to the website today. Use your mobile device to learn about the trends and action. BetOnline is where the game starts. Please gamble responsibly. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. How about making Locked On Now your second listen? Get caught up on the night in the NBA. You just talked about the Sixers and Nets. Get caught up with a Locked On Sixers, a Locked On Nets kind of recap. You get both sides of the story every night. Locked On Now, wherever you get your podcasts. It's on the Locked On NBA YouTube feed. So if you want to get the YouTube show, it's on the Locked On NBA YouTube feed. Let's bring Tom Westerholm back. And I'm just marveling at these possibilities here. So the Celtics have played now 67 games. So that means there are 15 games left. The Celtics 10-5 over that last. They can go 10-5 over the last 15 and be a 50-win team.
Yep.
Like, let's just. You heard me go through my whole thing before. Just, we could be sitting there. This is the March 11th show, so March 13th. If I had said, this is the classic, if I had said before the season that after they retire Kevin Garnett's number, the Celtics would be the 3 seed and have 50 wins within reach, I think all of our reactions would be like, wow, what a great season that would have been. If that's where I said that's where the Celtics would be, we'd be like, that shows you that everything went right. And this has been a season to, like, I should be writing a book about this season. And here we are, I'm sure not feeling quite that way.
I mean, yeah, but we'll see, right? Like, it might be like a really good season. I mean, it's kind of funny when you look at, so here's some of like the remaining strength of schedules, right? So the Celtics have the 6th most difficult remaining strengths of schedule. On the other hand, the number 2 is the Chicago Bulls, who are ahead of them currently. And number 3 is the Milwaukee Bucks, who are also ahead of them. The Bulls face the Suns, the Heat, the Jazz, the Bucks twice, the Celtics once, and the Cavaliers twice. The Bucks face the Grizzlies, the Warriors, the Jazz, the Sixers, the Mavs, and the Bulls twice. Like, these like this, you look ahead at the Sixers schedule, it's a little bit easier. They have the Magic coming up on Sunday, but then they have the Nuggets, the Cavaliers, the Mavericks, the Raptors, the Heat. Like, those are like those are not easy games. And the Celtics have some tough ones coming up too, unquestionably. But I mean, Friday's game against the Pistons, if they take care of business there, if they can, if they can beat the Mavs. I mean, last time they had a jersey retirement, it did not go well, but if they can, kind of clean up their jersey retirement games, I mean, yeah, like it's not out of the question that they are, like you said, that by the time that game is over, that things have shifted even more, and there's the potential to keep shifting. So, look, I mean, they, at this point, I almost think that it feels like they're kind of a favorite to have home court advantage, at least, right? Like that 4-5 ending up in the 4 seed seems like a very reasonable goal.
Sure.
Given everything, especially given the Bulls are trending downward a little bit recently. Like, I don't think that's crazy at all. So yeah, I mean, like, even if you didn't say like, wow, this is like, the greatest season of all time, just like if you said before the season that they were going to be the 4 seed going into the playoffs and that Jayson Tatum was going to be having another really, really good year, hey, like, that's great. That is as good as you could ask for a season. That I don't know what you were like, at the very beginning of the year, my whole thought for this season was the Celtics are trying to get through this season, get to the offseason, and then trade for a star. And at this point, it's like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, I don't know what they're going to do in the offseason, but like trading for a star, that feels risky given how many good players are already on the roster. Like,
I know that's
an unbelievable outcome.
That's my preseason thought was. I set everybody up for this. I said this is an evaluation year. This is they're assessing what they have, and the question was always going to be, do they have in Tatum and Brown an MVP candidate and an All NBA candidate? And if they do, then that's enough. And you use your assets to kind of build around those guys. And you go, the trade I was looking at was the Drew Holiday trade. And maybe you don't give up as much as you can, but that's the level of player, right? And if you don't, and if Tatum is your second or third team All NBA guy, and Jaylen is not quite, but he's an all-star, and you're like, okay, that's nice, but you still need that number one. Now you've got to like go all in for your number one.
Right.
And so I think safely I can say now in March that they have their number one. Tatum is very clearly a number one kind of guy. And this Tatum, especially with the expanded game, is certainly capable of leading a team to a championship. Jaylen Brown, I think, has proven throughout the course of the year, he's had bad games. The Hornets game was a bad game. But I think if he stayed fully healthy this year, people forget, like, he started off great. Like, he started off, like, the beginning of the season was Jaylen's having a better season than Jayson Tatum so far. And there was a debate when it came to...
Which I believe was also the case last year. I believe it was the exact same progression last year.
It was the exact same thing last year, which is an interesting thing. I want to see how that continues next year.
Yeah.
Presumably when COVID isn't the case. But I feel comfortable with saying, like, all right, now you're looking for more ancillary stuff. We're trying to fill in gaps. We're trying to find the guys that fit with what Ime is doing. Like, Ime was an evaluation, and I think that it's gone very well, taking the full body of work. He's come around, and I think he's done very, very well. And so now you're starting to get into, I hate to say it, but like, I shouldn't say I hate to say it. I kind of like to say it. Very Spursy. Your people are buying into the coach. The coach has a style, and now you're like, we've got guys who are buying into that style. They want to be coached. They're allowing themselves to be coached. And we're going to find guys who fit this system, this culture, this everything. That to me is huge, huge, huge. And I think that's where they are. And so I think a guy like Marcus Smart, who at the beginning of the season was kind of like some sort of a question mark, I think he fits this culture. I think guys like Smart are, I'm not going to say he's untradeable now, but I think you're much more likely to keep Smart. Obviously, you're going to keep Rob. Like, Rob's, I think, pretty close to untouchable. You just traded for Derek White. You're going to keep him. There's a question mark about Al, and we can dive into that some other time. I want to look at Marcus Smart and what Marcus Smart has done, like especially in these 4 March games where he has 15 points, shot 38% from 3, almost 86% from the line, almost 9 assists a game. Smart is just, I think, playing the perfect role for these two guys, where he's got the cachet and the longevity to say, hey, I've been here. I can talk to you like a captain would talk to players, and they respect each other. And he's good enough in this role now. I think we've proven that Marcus Smart can be your starting point guard and run a team, run with the pace, set the offense up, and then anchor a defense. Like, I think when we're talking about evaluations, we now have your star, your 1A in Jaylen Brown, and an almost indispensable guy now in Marcus Smart.
And I think when we're talking about evaluations, that's if you're a Celtics fan, that has to be one of the most encouraging things about this season, is that Brad Stevens evaluated. He brought in, he had this weird roster at the start of the season, right, where he had, all these very disparate pieces, and he evaluated it. And his whole thing was always, let's get guys that work well around Jaylen and Jayson. And the guys who didn't are gone. Dennis Schroeder did not work, and he is gone. Ennis Cantor did not, Ennis Freedom did not work. He is gone. All these guys who just did not work around these guys are now gone. And in their place, you have your Derek Whites, I mean, Robert Williams has his huge role now, and it's well-deserved. You have Kemba Walker did not work with these guys. I mean, he did when he was healthy. Obviously that was
sure.
That was a different thing, but he's gone, and Brad Stevens paid the price he had to pay to bring in somebody who was actually going to help, and that's Al Horford, who is really helpful alongside Jaylen and Jayson now at this point. And to your point, maybe more so than anybody else, Marcus Smart, right? Like he is like the role that he has kind of carved out for himself, the way that he has played over the last 2 months, after, whatever you want to call that rocky start to the season, and just kind of the integral role he has played in helping them turn their season around. I mean, he is everything that Brad Stevens said he wanted before the season, which is just a perfect fit next to Jaylen and Jayson. So, yeah, I mean, I think if you're a Celtics fan, I think that you can look at this year's team and just feel really good about the fact that, like, you're like the guy who's making the call now, like, I feel like he has like a real vision of like, okay, I really have a sense of what I need around Jaylen and Jayson. It's not guys like Dennis Schroeder. It's not guys like, whatever. It is guys like Marcus Smart. It is guys like Robert Williams. And I think I think 50% of the reason, like 70% of the reason they've been so good recently is Jayson Tatum. But I think a not insignificant part of the 30% remaining is because they have all these guys who fit perfectly around him and Jaylen.
No, that's true. That's 100% true. I have a feature dropping in the morning on Ime Udoka. I sat down with him one-on-one and, get a sense of him like pushing guys and his nature. And one of the things that I think I hope that people take away is that it's not just that he's blunt and direct and, taskmaster and all of that stuff. It's that the guys are opening themselves up and allowing the coaching to happen. That's something that has to happen in the NBA. And that Ime is kind of open-minded and listens to ideas. And it is a little bit of a back and forth where he has the final say. But all of that is, I believe, part of the culture building, that now you have a coach who is very secure in his spot.
Yes.
And a very clear directive. If you're going to play for me, these are the things you need to do. This is what you need to be as a player. And if you're not, then fine, go somewhere else. That's fine. If you are, then great. We're going to get along fine. I think between Brad and now, let's not discount the possibility or the shift into the owners are now aware that they're going to be a tax-paying team. So there's, I think, the money that they're going to spend is, I think they just accept it. They're like, okay, we know that we're going to have to spend money and we're going to have to bring guys in. No more of this luxury tax, blah, blah, blah. So Brad's going to have, I think, less of a handcuff in some sense. Although I guess as I'm saying this, I'm thinking like, well, I mean, part of that is also you're also not going to have as many options to spend. But anyway, right. He's going to have like whatever options he's the options that he has he's going to have. He's not going to have like limitations to how he uses them. You've got a coach that's in place. You've got players who are in place. You have a core that's in place. Like now you just need help, and you just need to figure out how to move a couple of little things here to get the help. I think it's just an amazing spot for them to be in. And just wrapping up this segment here, I just feel like this is, I wish the first 2 months of the season didn't happen the way they did, because I don't think people can fully enjoy where the Celtics are. But the Celtics are in a tremendous spot. It just, injuries and COVID happened. And I think that made the whole process of the new coach and the evolution of these guys a little bit more dramatic because of the way they were losing and all of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you ask, I think most Celtics fans, like if the Celtics, like if they have a good finish to the season, if they make the Eastern Conference Finals and they're competitive, or if they make the finals and they're competitive, however the season ends, I think most Celtics fans won't mind the first couple of months of the season, because I do
Sure.
think it kind of it shows the dichotomy of like, hey, things were going wrong and now you get to like really enjoy things going right. Now that, like you said, they're healthy and COVID stopped happening, and Dennis Schroeder and Ennis Freedom are elsewhere. And like, it's like all these things, that have kind of helped turn the season around. It seems like that, I think that there is a lot to be enjoyed for Celtics fans.
A lot to be enjoyed. We're also going to enjoy one hell of a weekend when Kevin Garnett's number is retired. And Kevin Garnett talked about just talking to Ray Allen. Oh my God, Tom, maybe we could put the Ray Allen stuff to bed. That would be amazing. We'll talk about that when I come back. First, let's talk about Built Bar. Built Bar is the best tasting protein bar on the market. But if it's not just Built Bar, they've got Built Puffs, they've got Built Boost, which is a powder that you can drink. They got Built Broth, they got all kinds of stuff. But really, Built Bar, the protein bar, is the anchor of the whole thing, and I love them. They are covered in 100% chocolate, which makes them taste like a candy bar. But most of these are like 130 or so calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, 17 grams of protein or so. So that's really just great. Compare that to a candy bar. It's like 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar. That's nuts. Built Bar is great. You want to just, if you're in a rush, grab a Built Bar with your coffee in the morning, have it in the car. It's great as a meal replacement. Go to the gym afterwards, you can have a Built Bar. Because it's low calorie, it doesn't blow out your cardio, and because it's got all the protein, it can help feed your muscles after you've got a good lift. So check it out. Go to built.com. You can see all the wide array of flavors, all the different flavor profiles. You can scroll over each bar and see the nutrition information. They're not hiding anything. And you can use the promo code LOCK15. You're going to get 15% off your order every single time. So buy a box now, buy a box next month, stock up, sample, whatever. Each time you go, use the promo code LOCK15. You're going to get 15% off every time. Use that promo code LOCK15 at built.com. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. How about making Locked On NBA your second listen? Locked On NBA is a podcast that I host on Wednesdays with Jake Madison from Locked On Pelicans, rotating hosts who cover the league a little bit more in depth and get into some of the big storylines. I'm sure the Friday Locked On NBA is going to be fun after that Sixers Nets game. So make sure you're checking that out wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Let's bring Tom back in. Those of you on the YouTube show can see over my right shoulder the Kevin Garnett jersey that is hanging. It will be hanging a little bit higher on Sunday when the Celtics retire his number. Tom, this is going to be one crazy weekend because they're doing this on a Sunday. They're having a big banquet on Saturday to honor, like to kind of celebrate 75, and I'm sure that's going to have like be full of like legends. And I think like Gary Washburn said that they invited Ray Allen to the number retirement, and Kevin Garnett on the Showtime show, whatever, he and Kendrick Perkins were talking, and they talked about that picture that they took at All-Star where Ray is, it's Ray and KG and Paul, and KG's like, yeah, we talked, whatever. He didn't get too deep into it, but it was like, they're talking like they're starting to put this behind them, that it happened organically and all of that stuff. And it seems like finally, we can be like done with this Ray Allen beef.
Yeah, it only took everybody
14 years?
Mid, late 40s? Like, where are we at with everybody here? It's like, come on, guys. Let's bury some beef here. This is
right.
I will say it would be very funny if they invited Ray Allen and then he didn't show up. Like they were already to squash the beef, and Ray Allen was just like, nah.
Oh my God, he has to show up.
I kind of hope he doesn't, just for the chaos. Like,
oh my God, that would be the worst. It would be the best and the worst. It would be the best, like, if for those of you, chaos mongers, but like, it would be the worst because, like, we couldn't put this to bed. Because imagine KG going on to this thing talking about, like, yeah, we finally buried the hatchet. Yeah, we're inviting Ray. And Ray's like, Let me check my calendar. Did you say the 13th? Ooh.
Ray
I'll let
just
you know.
Ray just does that gif where the guy like holds up the peace sign and then just disappears.
Oh my God.
Look, I would assume Ray will show up. I would assume the hatchet is actually somewhat buried. I mean, it's like it just always like it had to be kind of unpleasant for everybody involved, including Ray, right? Like these are the guys that you won a championship with. Like, you went through all these battles with these guys, and yeah, of course, like it ended on not so great terms, and I'm sure that all kinds of hurt feelings and everything. But it's been a decade. I mean, I'm sure everybody's just kind of ready to after yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how many true beefs you've had in your life, but I do feel like 10 years removed is probably enough time removed to just kind
Other
of
than mine with you, I have none.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good for you, dog. But yeah, my
I've had one in my life that I still kind of harbor a bit of a grudge, but that's I know I shouldn't. You think that Danny Ainge not being here anymore has any role in Ray Allen kind of coming back? Because the one thing I always tell people is that, yeah, Ray left and we can go through all of that and relitigate all of that stuff. But lost in this whole shuffle is that Ray Allen was basically told that he was traded. And, and he made his decision based partly on this feeling of, well, I mean, if you don't value me and you want to trade me, then I'm just going to go anyway. So, but now Danny's gone.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if that plays a role in this.
That's a good point. I mean, and I do think Celtics fans always conveniently overlooked that to an extent, right? That like Ray probably didn't feel particularly secure in Boston, that like he might, hey, if he's going to get traded or if he's going to have to leave Boston, he may have wanted to, like, to an extent. I know there were like, a lot of things involved, but like one of the reasons might have been just like, hey, if I'm going to leave, let me leave on my terms. Let me leave and go where I want to go and try to win a championship where I want to win a championship. Like that's pretty reasonable, especially, the Celtics had this like up and coming guard that, Avery Bradley, that they were like, kind of committed to at the time. Sure. Like there were reasons to believe that Avery Bradley was going to, that like, I mean, if I remember right, I think there was like chatter that like, hey, maybe Ray Allen would make sense coming off the bench as like a sixth man.
Oh yeah. There was.
And again, like, it's not like Ray started in Miami, but at least he was able to do it on his terms, right? He was able to choose the fact that he was going to be coming off the bench. He was going to be able to choose the players whom he was going to be coming off the bench behind. It wasn't going to be, these guys that he's played with and that he helped win a title. It was going to be like, the new blood, like the which is funny to think of Dwayne Wade and LeBron James that way now, but like, the young stars coming up.
Right. And also stick it to the Celtics while he was at it.
And stick it to the Celtics.
I mean, Danny's going to be there. Danny's going to be there on Sunday. So I'm sure there'll be some awkward moments, but Danny never really shied away from those either. Like everybody, like he is seriously like did not care. Like he specifically told, there are players who tell stories of Danny Ainge walking through practice and be like, I'm going off to scout your replacements. And that's kind of making light of what the job is. Like, so in some sense, I get like all the personal, like the animosity and, the pettiness. Oh, NBA pettiness at its absolute peak, because you're Ray Allen and you say, oh, you wanted to trade me? Well, I'm out and I'm going to go to your direct rival and I'm going to help them win a championship and, stick it in your faces. And maybe there's some, people caught in the crossfire and that's his old teammates. And now that creates another level of pettiness and all that. In the end, it's people who are just doing their damn job. Like Danny Ainge was doing his job. Ray Allen was doing his job. He was a free agent. He made a decision, done. And like everybody made their decisions. And this has gone on way, way, way too far. And fans, there are some fans who are, again, I feel like this week has been a whole lot of, I don't want to gatekeep fandom. I'm not trying to gatekeep fandom. If you don't like Ray Allen, you don't like Ray Allen. That's fine. That's your choice, whatever. I choose to say that I think Ray has, I'm glad that this is over. Now, I will also acknowledge and throw this out to you, Tom. how much do you think Ray Allen kind of angling for his own jersey to go up in the rafters is part of this? Because part of getting his jersey up there is thawing the relations with the Celtics, and him saying like, hey, I was part of this championship too, and the turning around and the culture and all of that stuff. I'm sure there might be some level of, I want my number retired too, going on here.
It's an interesting point, because I to me, that ship has so sailed.
I think so too. I think so too. But
maybe that's what Ray is thinking, like, to an extent, potentially. To me, it's just like, not only did Ray leave and sign with the Celtics rival and all this stuff, not only is there, not anymore, obviously, not only was there beef with like two members of like the Celtics organization who, there was no question that 34 and 5 were going to be retired, right?
None.
To the point, especially 34, obviously, but to the point that like even 5, nobody was going to get the number 5. Nobody was going to get it. Like Gordon Hayward had 20. I think 20 would not be a difficult number, like to get it. It never felt that odd that Gordon Hayward had number 20. Like it never, like you didn't look at that number and think to yourself, oh man, but that was Ray Allen's number. So. Right. I don't think that look, again, maybe that's what Ray is thinking. I don't see it happening ever, but
neither.
I think it is. It's plausible. I mean, because where else is Ray Allen, gonna get his number retired? Like,
Seattle. No, Seattle doesn't exist anymore.
I mean, maybe they come back and they want to manufacture some history, but like, I don't know, man.
That's actually a great point. That's how it would happen.
Yeah.
They would create a new Seattle Sonics, and on opening night they would retire Ray Allen's number.
Retire a couple numbers, right? Like opening night to celebrate, like, okay, Seattle's back, we're gonna retire Sean Kemp and Ray Allen and whoever else. Yeah, exactly.
Look, I don't know if they actually have but yeah, Gary Payton, Sean Kemp, right. Ray Allen, and That totally makes sense. You're right. Yeah. It's not going to happen in Boston. He did get named to the 75th anniversary team, so I'm sure he's going to be there to kind of like soak up some of that. I'm just guessing at the number retirement thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it should be fun. I think it'll go a long way. I think it's going to be very kind of like WWE because of the 20,000 people who are going to be in there, only 19,500 listen to this podcast. So there's going to be, or should I say 19 people who listen to this podcast, but like, there are going to be a lot of people who kind of are somewhat surprised by what's going to happen. They're not all connected to their phones. So it's going to be interesting for them to be like, Ray Allen, and he comes out and people go like, oh my God, there's going to be a huge pop for that because the people who are in the arena are going to be like psyched. I think they're going to be psyched.
I think so too. I hope so.
I hope so too, man. I mean, like, I think him just walking out is going to be like an acknowledgement, like, "Hey, everybody, we're putting this behind us." Yeah. So everybody raise up and cheer. So, and if the Celtics are smart, they might like if TD Garden people are smart, they might like have some cheers ready that they can turn the volume up, like just the pipe in a little bit, like. If there are too many boos, just pop in some cheers and make it sound a little louder.
They can really Wells Fargo Arena it.
Yeah. Way to bring it full circle.
That's not true. Real quick, because I don't want angry Sixers fans. Sixers fans are insanely loud. It's
loud.
Music. It's the music that's too loud at Wells Fargo.
The arena is super loud.
Brooklyn is where it's all fake. It's all fake in Brooklyn.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. But again, full circle. Just dropping bombs on both franchises. So with that, on that note, we went a little extra on this one, but it's a Friday podcast. You can listen to it. If you didn't get through it, you can listen to it on the next day, whatever. We're talking a lot of stuff here. So Tom, appreciate you. Thanks for hopping on. Mm-hmm. We'll see you next time. And we'll see you next time whenever you hop onto the podcast. Check this podcast out. It's free. It's available every single day, Monday through Friday. So download, subscribe, all of that stuff. Check out the show on YouTube. Shows on YouTube. You can see the Garnett jersey behind me and my cool Locked On sign. and all of that stuff. That's the only reason why you'd want to watch the show on YouTube, I suppose. If you are a subscriber, wherever you subscribe, share the podcast, tell your friends, tell everybody that they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network.